Hello and welcome to Box, the football talk show brought to you by Sportology TV with myself, Ali Drew, and my co-host, Ouney.
Guys, welcome to Box episode number 4. Just a quick recap from last week. First of all, congratulations to Awesome Football Club for winning the FA Cup. So DT, we need you back on, man. Really, good luck, chance. So come back on soon. We had DT on talking about that. We also had Danny Mills on talking about Leeds becoming the Championship champions and getting promoted to the Premier League and everything else to do with Leeds Football Club. So give that a check out. Ali, this week, what have we got?
We've got 2 more great guests on today, starting off with former Aston Villa, Man United and Chelsea goalkeeper, and now football pundit and show host, the one and only Mark Bosnich. Mark, how are you doing?
Good, thanks, Ali. Hello, Ouney. How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing, Mark? How's things out where you are? How's things out in Sydney?
Well, we've been okay, fortunately. Unfortunately for the whole country, the state below us, south of us, Victoria, where the capital city is Melbourne, they've gone into stage 4 lockdown, which is pretty severe. They've got curfews. They can only go out one person of a family at a time to get some food because they've had a second wave. But here in Sydney, touch wood, and New South Wales in general, things have been okay. We've had, I think, just 13 cases today. And to be fair to Melbourne and Victoria in general, in comparison to the rest of the world, it's still relatively quite mild. But in terms of Australia, they had 429 cases today. So everyone's a little bit on edge because of what's going on there. But other than that, so far, so good. From a personal point of view, it's exactly the same thing. So far, so good. The local football has started here again. So I've been working with that. And me personally as well, I've been calling on some favours from people all around the world to do some interviews just to keep everything ticking along.
Of course. Mark, before we talk about football currently, I just want to talk to you about yourself, about life after football. We know you become a pundit, you work for Fox and whoever else. But just talk to me about this transition, turning into the media man, somebody who's in front of the camera. How have you dealt with that? Has that been quite natural for you?
Well, it's a very good question, Ouney. At the beginning, it's always very difficult because, from a very young age, you're very fortunate in one way just to choose something you love, which is football, and even more fortunate to play it. And during that career, you don't give much time to think about really what's going to happen in the future. You think it's going to last forever. Obviously, it's not. And when I came back to Australia I think it was 2008, and I played a few games. I hadn't played for quite some time. I didn't really know what I was going to do. I was supposed to go back to America to do a reality TV program, but I don't think my parents were very happy that I was going to do that. So I was very fortunate to get Fox Sports Australia, which would be the equivalent of, say, Sky Sports in the UK. It had the EPL rights, which was, obviously that's where I made my bones. So that was so important. And the local rights, the A-League. And very, very lucky that they said, come and work for us. So I did, and touch wood, for the last 12 years that I've been working with them. So it's been really, really lucky. And also, in terms of punditry, look, it's like anything else. Slowly but surely, obviously, you get better. I think it's always important to keep in your mind the 2 things I was told, really. Always ask questions and always tell the truth. If you do that, it's very difficult to go wrong. Obviously, there are times, and everyone knows that, where the brutal truth is sort of here, and then there's the truth that you can put it in a different type of way. Because you've got to remember as well, when you're talking about young players, you were that young player one day. You had family, you had friends watching people, talk about you. So you've always got to keep that in the back of your mind, because it's quite easily to sort of destroy a young player's confidence. Inadvertently, which you don't even know that you're doing. So I've learned to be very, very careful and try to be constructive if I have to criticise.
Well, just looking at the Premier League that we've just had, obviously extended due to the break. I just want to talk about one of your former clubs, Aston Villa. Obviously, they managed to stay up. They did leave it to the very last game, very last minute to stay up. What's your reaction to them staying up?
Well, Ali, it was for me. It was I was so happy that they did stay up, because for such a long time, even after the COVID break, as much as I was being positive when I was speaking to people, and especially when I was doing stuff on UK radio and TV, I was saying, they're going to stay up, they're going to stay up. Deep down, I was really worried, and it really wasn't up until that final whistle went against West Ham. that I actually felt safe. I mean, it was a fantastic win. I think it was 3 days earlier against Arsenal. No doubts about that. And obviously, Watford getting rid of Nigel Pearson, you kind of thought, like, at that stage, I thought you sort of think advantage, to Aston Villa, but they're still got to go out and do it. And like I said, there were some nervous moments. I know Jack Grealish, when he put Villa ahead of them, I was like, okay, well, that's it. And then West Ham equalised literally a minute later, and I was like, oh gosh. But I was so happy for the club, for Dean Smith, John Terry, who was an ex-teammate of mine as well, and all the boys, because it's not a nice feeling. I was very fortunate in my career that only one season, I think it was, that we flirted with relegation. That was in 1994-95, and it really wasn't nice. People talk about the pressure at the top, and there's no doubt about that. It's a different type of pressure when things are expected of you, as opposed to when you're on the other end. But I would take that pressure at the top of the table anytime over the other side, because going down is not only a catastrophe for yourself personally, but for the club, for the supporters, for everyone that's involved. So happy for them, so relieved, and they just got to make sure that they don't get in that position again. How do they do that? Well, it really does, as we know, it comes down to recruitment. It's so important. Wherever, at whatever level you play at, anywhere around the world, recruitment really is everything.
Talking about recruitment then, Mark, which players stood out for you this year? Because we know Aston Villa bought a lot of players in. Jack Grealish has been there for a long time. They bought Trezeguet. There's obviously a lot of talent there. Tyrone Mings is there as well. Just talk to me about the player that you've felt that stood out for you this season.
Well, I think you just mentioned him, Jack Grealish, and obviously there's a lot of speculation about whether or not he will stay or whether or not he will go. As an ex-Aston Villa man, of course, I would dearly love him to stay, but stepping outside that, and if you have to be totally fair to him, he stayed with Aston Villa when he didn't have to, when they went back to the Championship. He played a major part in Aston Villa coming back up. He's coming up to, or he's on the verge of being at the peak of his powers. So I could understand totally if he turned around and said, look, listen, I really wanted to go. I know a lot of Villa supporters would not only disagree, but would be very upset. But I think he's not only put his time in, but he's done so much for the club. And if you get the type of price tag that they're talking about, you can use that to maybe improve in other areas. You mentioned Trezeguet. I think he's been very, very good. There's been flashes of brilliance all throughout the season from different players, but I think that's actually been part of the problem. There hasn't been a consistency when sort of 5 or 6 players have played really, really well at one particular stage, and they sort of carried the others along. It's kind of been the reverse. There's been too many bad performers, at specific times, and the ones that have played well and shone, it hasn't really made a difference because of that. So I really do think they need to take a look at the goalkeeping position. I know Nyland's done really, really well when he's come in, but then Pepe Reina came in and that as well. So Pepe Reina is obviously no spring chicken, so they're going to have a look at that. And everybody always says, and we all know that, in terms of football, everyone's always looking for the guy that's going to make a difference and score goals. But I think we've seen, I know they've changed their technical director. I think they've brought in a chap from Denmark, from FC Copenhagen, called Johan Lang, who apparently, from reading all the reports, is a mixture of data-based and Moneyball, if you like. But look, it is important for a club like Aston Villa, unless you all of a sudden, they've obviously got, very wealthy owners, or they would be owning a football club. But, in terms of, if you've got somebody in the league of, say Manchester City's owners in terms of wealth, then it's a different story altogether. They haven't. So they're going to have to look at bargains. And also there's the other thing as well, where because they're around the position that they are, to convince players to come, it's going to be very, very difficult. So you're going to have to look for those young emerging players, and maybe what you miss out with getting a little bit more experience, you'll make up with that youth. But you just got to be a bit careful that you strike a right balance, because you don't want too many young players at the same time who are developing, and all of a sudden during their development, things go wrong and they go down. So it's very, very important. It's going to be very important in terms of what they do in the transfer market. Dean Smith and his staff will know exactly what they want and what they need. And then it's a matter of bedding down and making sure from a tactical perspective and that they're absolutely spot on. From a physical perspective, they're spot on. And also from a confidence, from a psychological perspective, because there's so many games there were this season I was watching, even against the very best teams, where you realise as an ex-player that there's a very fine line between what's excellent and what's very, very good. But that makes a big difference when it comes to the heat of the battle.
Mark, I actually want to talk about Jack Grealish and something that you did in your career. You went from Aston Villa to Manchester United.
Yeah.
Jack Grealish has been linked to United for a long time. In the last week or two, maybe in the last 10 days, it's sort of cooled off the interest because of the price tag. Because Villa have stayed up, the price tag is still quite high. I think United might have, preferred that if Villa went down, that the price tag would have gone down. They would have got Jack Grealish on a cheaper deal. But if United were to come in for him and there was a deal to be made, the sort of how big a club Manchester United is, everything that comes around with it. Do you think that Jack Grealish could succeed at United?
Oh, I think he definitely would succeed at Manchester United. I think Manchester United has obviously gone through a little bit of a lull after Sir Alex retired, and that's understandable. You've seen that as well, to a lesser extent in terms of with Arsene Wenger at Arsenal. When somebody's there for so long and has such success, there was always going to be, it's always going to be a bit dicey with transition. But Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's got the DNA in his club. He knows exactly what he wants, where he wants to go, and I think we're starting to see the results of that. I mean, I think they only lost one of their last 20 games, and that was in the FA Cup semi-final when they went out to Chelsea. So I think he definitely can. He's got, players in the midfield as well, in terms of Bruno Fernandes and Paul Pogba, who are absolutely world-class. For me, there's no doubt about that. I know people have had their doubts about Paul Pogba and this, that, and the other, but look, the bottom line is he's world-class, and one, if not, one of the best players in the world on his day easily. And Bruno Fernandes has come in and done a fantastic job. Grealish obviously plays in midfield, but maybe a little bit further forward of those other two. When you've got so many good players around you, and you've got that will and that desire, and especially the place that they are, it's not as if they've been winning trophies continually, they're just starting to come back up. Yeah. I think you'd be a great success there. I really do. And in terms of the price tag going up and sort of the interest cooling off, that's all part of what goes on during negotiations, because it really is a lot of cat and mouse, if you like, Yeah. Clubs want to do everything they possibly can to pay the least amount of money in terms of the transfer fee, because they know on top of that, they're going to have to pay the players' wages as well. So you'll see a lot of this as well. And normally, if the club who are buying knows that player wants to leave, and this is why I was talking about that before, I don't want Villa fans, if that eventually comes out, to be too hard on him because of the fantastic job he's done. So if that buying club eventually knows 100% the player wants to leave, then it's a matter of basically the selling club getting the best possible price for him, because there's no use having somebody around if they don't want to be there.
Well, if Villa do get the sort of transfers right, obviously, if they do lose Grealish, but they get the players coming in right, what do you think realistically they can achieve in this upcoming season? What do you think is realistic for them to sort of aim for?
Well, I think it's realistic, Ali, for them to aim for the top 10. I really do. But obviously, like you just said, it's a very, very important thing to get it right. And, you can have all the data, you can do all the analysis, you can have all the algorithms and this, that, and the other, but it's going to come down to then what happens on the park on that Saturday or that Wednesday, whenever that is. So that is obviously a huge thing. But if they do, I really do think that they can consolidate themselves and get into the top 10 and maybe go on a run in one of the cup competitions. And that's really where they should be aiming. Just to aim again, just to stay up. If you eventually keep aiming for that, you'll be around there and thereabouts. And I think we said that before. Well, I definitely said that before about 5 or 6 years ago. There was season after season when they were really struggling. I was saying, if this continues, 1 year you're going to go down. So they've really got to consolidate themselves and try to aim for that top 10. If they come 12th or 13th, that's still an achievement. And then really try to push on from that, because they're a massive club. There's no doubt about that. They've won the European Cup, European Champions League, as it's called now, the biggest club in the Midlands. And all they have to do really is look across the road to Wolverhampton Wanderers and see what can be achieved. I mean, if I'd said to both of you maybe 5 years ago that this is what Wolverhampton Wanderers will be, on August 3rd in 2020, I think both of you looked at me sort of would have went, "Oh gosh, are you sure? Have you been drinking?" So it can be done. There's no doubt about that. It can be done. But doing it is another thing.
Mark, I just want to move away from Aston Villa quickly. I want to talk about an ex-teammate of yours, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. You just mentioned him just a while ago. Just talk to me about his tenure at Manchester United. This year, it seems like half the year, he was trying to figure out a team, what his first 11 was. and the results didn't go his way. The second half of the year and the inclusion of Bruno Fernandes seems to have lifted that team and made them put him into third place. What do you make of his tenure at Man United so far?
I think he's been absolutely excellent. I know there was a lot of doubters, and they still may be lingering, like you said before Christmas, of the results. But he had very little time in the game, and look, patience in football now is at a complete premium. I was at the club as a youngster from 1988 to 1991, and there was a period in that second season when I was there in 1989-90 where the fans used to stay back after home games and basically bay for Sir Alex Ferguson to get the sack. Well, at that time, the chairman, Martin Edwards, and his board stayed strong. They ended up winning the FA Cup that year in 1989-90 against Crystal Palace, and the rest was history. Now, in these days, it's very difficult probably to get the amount of time that Sir Alex did way back then. But I just saw it as part of his, he came in, he'd done a great thing, in my opinion, by getting Mickey Phelan back as another one who's got the DNA in his club, not only as a player, but as a staff member during the glory years of Sir Alex Ferguson. And you could tell exactly what he was trying to do. They had that wonderful win in the Champions League away from home from PSG when no one gave him a chance. And like you said, okay, this season, the results weren't great, but it was definitely in the building stage, and he was definitely laying down the foundations of exactly what he wanted from the players in terms of their attitude and what they did. And then once you've got that laid down, and then you bring in quality like you did with Bruno Fernandes, so far as I'm concerned, it's only then a matter of time. The COVID break coming as it did, a lot of people saying, it was a bad time for Manchester United because they had that win, and that was a fair comment. But you saw when they come back, they still need to strengthen in certain areas if they want to go that step further and close the gap to Liverpool. There's no doubt about that. But when you're looking, through that team, and especially in the engine room, like I said, when you mentioned Paul Pogba and also Bruno Fernandes, they're definitely on the right track. There's no doubt about that whatsoever. And I believe, like I said, all along, as soon as he was appointed, he's a very, very intelligent person. He's an excellent man. There's no doubt about it. He was a fantastic player. I mean, I don't think people realise how great a striker he actually was. He was absolutely superb. And he knows his football. And given time, I believe, and when I say this, I truly believe that he will make a success. And when I mean a success, I believe eventually that he will bring the Manchester United back to the level that we'll become used to for so long.
Well, you also played for Chelsea as well, and I just want to get your reaction to them losing out at the FA Cup final this weekend to Arsenal. Yeah. Was that a shock, do you think?
Well, a little bit. Yeah, it was a bit, Ali, to be fair. Obviously, they were favourites going into the game, although you have to give a lot of credit to Mikel Arteta and Arsenal. I thought that they were absolutely spot on with the tactics they employed, with the plan they had. They stuck to it, even though they went 1-0 down quite early and probably should have even gone 2-0 down. But they stuck to their game plan, and they have got a world-class striker in Aubameyang, and he showed that on the day. But it surprised me because normally over here when those games are on really, really late, I put the tape on and then I try to stay away from social media or any, so I don't know what the result is, but I couldn't help myself because Frank, I was very close to Frank in my time, and I was willing him to win his first major trophy as a manager. So I just went straight on, and I was, you're exactly right. I was a little bit shocked that I saw that they went down 2-1. But look, and I've said this before as well, just tonight actually, talking to somebody. If you had said to Frank Lampard and Chelsea at the start of the season, knowing they had those transfer bans, knowing that he had the blood youngsters, there was no way, and the fact that they'd lost even Hazard as well, and a lot of people sort of just tend to sort of overlook that, but that's it's a massive thing to feel when you lose a player who scores nearly 20 goals and assists, and another 20 as well. If I'd said to him last August, all right, here I am, I can grant you a wish, okay? You can get in the FA Cup final, but I can also guarantee you, I can't guarantee that you win that FA Cup final, but I can guarantee that I'll get you in the top 4 and you'll be in the Champions League. I reckon not 99%, 100% he would have said, show me where I signed. So it's disappointing. There's no doubt about that because the game is about trophies, but in terms of what they have achieved and the fact that they got into the Champions League, for me, it's a great success, especially, like I said, at the start of the season when they had those transfer bans.
Going off that then, Mark, you just said that you had a good relationship with Frank Lampard. Do you feel like he can succeed as a manager and bring Chelsea back to winning trophies and winning titles again?
Oh yeah, of course he can. There's no doubt about that. He's another one, knows his football inside out. And let's not forget as well, it's a great bonus when you've been, he was one of the best players in the world of his generation. There's no doubt about that, and to have that type of weight when you're a manager, it makes such a difference. Yes, we all know that a lot of people always say, and they're right, just because you were such a great player doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be a great manager. And we've seen that before. There's no doubt about that. But what I'm saying to you is if you start getting it right, which he has already started to get it right, the fact that you've been such a great player, it does give you so much more weight into that dressing room. Now, there's a lot of tests to come. There's obviously a lot of talk about, what's going to go on with the goalkeeper Kepa, and then he'll have a chance then now to sort of throw the dice in the transfer market. But I believe that he will be a massive success. There's no doubt about that. He's at the right club. He's, it's in his heart. He's sweated, blood and tears for that club. And I think he's already shown in very difficult circumstances his quality.
Well, you mentioned before Arteta, and what do you actually think of him as a manager? Do you think he seems to be doing well now with the team? I think we got yellow carded at the weekend, so it was just crazy game. Injuries, yellow cards, red cards. Yeah. But what do you think of him as a manager?
Very impressed. He went up a couple notches with that FA Cup final because, at the beginning when things were going like they were going, and I could see what he was trying to do, if I didn't know the result, like I just said before, I knew the result. But if I didn't know the result, and especially if I was an Arsenal fan, I would have been thinking after maybe, say 20 minutes or so, maybe it's time to change it a little bit. He didn't. He stuck to the plan. It was a plan that worked well for him, very, very similar to what he did against Manchester City as well in the semi-final. And he got it absolutely spot on. Look, as a manager, you've got several tasks, but one of your main tasks, from my experience as a manager, is to identify who your best player or best players are, and to make sure that they get the most time and space on the ball because you want them to do the most damage. And he worked that out very, very well. He's, like I said, he's got a world-class striker in Aubameyang, and he made sure that he got the balls in the right position at the right time to cause the most damage. And that's an art in itself. In terms of the way the rest of the team, the way they set up, like I said, he went up a couple of notches. And the other thing is with Arteta, he had the privilege and the honour and the great experience of working underneath, one of the great managers that we've seen in modern football, in Pep Guardiola. That would have been such a great experience for him to be able to see close hand, the very best and how he works and what he does. And he's another one, a young one who, like I said to you before Saturday, maybe wouldn't have been as strong, but after that FA Cup final and what he did, most definitely. And I believe he's another one, given time, that he'll bring Arsenal back to where they should be.
Well, before you go, I just want to ask you one final question. You played with a lot of great players. You played with a lot of great players in your career.
Yeah.
Name me that one player that stood out for you that you played with.
Ryan Giggs, no doubt about it. And I am biased because, like I said to you, I was a youngster at Manchester United from 1988 to 91, from the age of 16 to 19. And I'll never forget, it was at the old training ground, The Cliff. And I don't know if there was a few of us there. Either we were training or maybe I was injured or whatever. And I'll never forget, Ryan had come down to play a schoolboy game. I think it might have been for Salford Boys or maybe St. or whatever, whoever he was playing for anyway. And I'll never forget Sir Alex that time coming around saying, just take a look at this young boy. He's only 15, who's playing on the left-hand side for this team, whoever he was playing. And, when the boss says that, you go, okay, well, we start watching through the window. And I know, for me, I was like a moment where you sort of thought, well, maybe this was like, first time seeing Jack Nicklaus hit the golf ball, or, Michael Jordan play basketball, or say Brian Lara pick up a cricket bat, or Muhammad Ali box. You could tell, you just tell, and his balance and his poise and his athleticism was just absolutely amazing. There was others who were absolutely fantastic players. I mentioned one in Frank Lampard, Gianfranco Zola, Paul McGrath, Dwight York. All players like this, and Paul Scholes. There were so many. But Ryan Giggs for me was definitely number one.
That's good. Well, thank you so much for your time, Mark. It's been great speaking to you.
Thank you, Ali, and thank you, Ouney.
Thank you very much.
Great.
It's been a pleasure, Mark. Hopefully, when the season's back up and running, we can get you back on and talk more football with yourself.
Anytime.
Mark Bosnich,
Thank you.
thank you very much
Appreciate
for joining us. Thank you very much.
Guys, it was great to have Mark Bosnich on for part 1. Make sure you stay tuned. For part 2, we have another great guest, former United defender and part of the treble-winning team, David May.